Today on Still Kiwis and Characters in Motorsport, I meet a husband and wife team in Fullerton, California, and speak with the founding member of the famous Riley and Scott race car manufacturer, Mark Scott. Then talk IndyCar with Andretti team manager, Paul Ziggy Harcus. Welcome back to another edition of Still Kiwis and Characters in Motorsport. Here we are in the massive Midwest and in the massive cornfields of the Midwest. But today, we start back in Indianapolis at Andretti Autosport and with Kiwi team manager, Ziggy Harker.
I went across to Europe for a while, and then I was just doing the typical New Zealand deal of traveling around the world, and ended up meeting a friend of mine in Europe who was working for the March Formula One team back in the early days, and he ended up coming to America, and I was on my way back, and we ended up meeting up, got a job, worked with him, and it's now 30 years later, I'm still doing the same thing.
And now, as I say, Andretti Autosport, one of the big three teams in the IndyCar series. It's an amazing facility, it's an amazing team, and you are the team manager of it. That must give you a good feeling.
Yeah, no, it's very good. It's a great team to work for, and Michael has taken over the team himself this year, and it was originally owned by Kim Green, Michael, and a guy called Kevin Savory, and he's taken it over himself. And it's so for me, I was very lucky to land the job, and landed it from an Australian, actually, John Anderson, who was working here and decided to leave and go and work and do the Gilles de Ferran ALMS program. So at that time, I'd taken his job as Director of Operations in Champ Car, and then I swapped over here, and then when he left here, I helped into his job here, and I like to tell people that I was cleaning up his messes. He has a different story. We actually have two team managers here because of the size of the team. We have, we run 4, sometimes 5 cars and Indy Lights cars. So we have two team managers, and we split responsibilities. So George Clotes will take care of everything to do with the Honda side of it. I take care of everything to do with the Dallara side of it. So that way we're not split between. The only time we're actually assigned to a car is actually on the race days or race weekends. So at the track, we have less to do than we do here at the shop. At the shop, we're very busy. At the track, we should be ahead of the game already. We should have everything sorted unless we crash, and then we just make sure everyone has what they need to make it happen.
You're also the team strategist for the Danica Patrick car. You're the guy we see on the pit wall getting excited when she's doing well and getting depressed when she's not. How did you get to be doing that?
Well, actually, I started this year. I was with Danica last year, and started this year off with on Tony Kanan's car, and then they moved me right before Indianapolis. They decided they wanted to make a change and moved me on there, and so we've had Indianapolis. She finished 6th, and then we were 2nd at Texas, so it's been good, but it's a long way down from good.
Is it your fault when things go wrong?
When it all comes down to it, yes. It's you take that position, and so yes, the finger points to me. The final decision, there's a group of us, we discuss it as the race goes on. We're on an intercom system, we talk about it. When it all comes down to it, like the last race, we discussed it. There was different theories of what we should do, and when it all comes down to it, they say, Zig, it's your decision, and that's true. So yes, the blame does rest on my shoulders, and I've been on the point where the driver has been very vocal about the decision made, and rightfully so, and I've also had them where they're just happy as hell with the decision, so it has both ways.
Andretti Autosport has 4 or 5 cars, depending, we'll call it 4 at the moment. All the drivers are very, very competitive. All the cars are incredibly well prepared, and they're incredibly close in competition. There is always going to be some conflict between the 4 drivers about who's got a better job, who's doing a better job and who's not. Does that eat into the team occasionally? Does that eat into your problem as well?
Oh, it's definitely, it eats into the whole team all the time, because when you've got 4 drivers, the slowest driver is always going to be unhappy, no matter whether you're 1 through 4. We have a tough battle on our hands with Penske's and Ganassis right now. They're very fast. We have a good race car. We just don't seem to be able to qualify as fast as we want.
Would you go back to New Zealand? Would you go back there to live at one stage?
I would love to. I go back every year normally, and I love my times at home. The biggest problem I have now is that most of my friends have, they've grown away or apart since that. But as far as going home, every time I fly in, it's just such a beautiful country, and I love going home. I love visiting there, and I have no problem. I'm married to an American girl, and I have a little 8-year-old girl at my age, so I would definitely like to go back there, especially once it gets time to get out of the motor racing side. I'd love to go back and spend at least some years back there. And I think things happen in life and that changes your whole life, and one of them for me was getting involved in motor racing when I really hadn't made it my decision to be a part of my life, but it happened and it's been a wonderful thing, and I think that I definitely have no regrets for what I've done, and I love every part of it and still like it.
We've just come from the incredibly professional outfit at Andretti Autosport, and you can see from the workshop, everything has to be perfect. The cars, the shop, the mechanics, the trucks, everything. But it doesn't matter how perfect that is, you've got to have a perfectly fit driver to actually drive those cars. The one way they do get fit is here with Jim Leo at Pitfit Training. Jim, how do you get these guys into being a machine in a machine?
Well, the stresses that the drivers encounter in the car, high heart rates, high G loads, high heat, those kind of things. We try to condition the drivers to adapt in the gym to these conditions so that when they get in the race car, they're not as stressed. Therefore, the performance level's higher, they don't fatigue as fast, they handle all the stresses of driving the car a little better.
But this isn't simply getting somebody fit. There is a special demand for a race car driver. He's got to be emotionally fit, physically fit, and mentally fit to drive a race car.
Well, that's the thing about racing cars. It's probably the only sport where one mistake can cost you your life. It isn't like hockey or basketball or a sport like that where if you make a mistake, it's maybe one less point or you take a little break and on a timeout. Drivers don't have that, so every single decision they make on the track has to be the right decisions or it could be catastrophic.
And one of the drivers you have here is 3 times Indianapolis race winner, Wade Cunningham.
Well, Wade came to us in 2005, the year that he won the championship, and the first thing I learned about Wade is that not discounting our other drivers, but he's by far the fittest driver that we have in our program. He's probably also the smartest driver in our program, which pushes my limits quite a bit in the fact that he demands more out of me than probably any other driver. So he allows us to kind of try new things with him. He gives me his input on how things go, and he's very, very astute in knowing exactly what he needs to make himself a better driver.
So Wade is not only a robot in the car, he's a bit of a training robot as well.
He is absolutely a scary training robot to the point where if I want to bring in a new driver to compare their level of fitness, I'll schedule a workout alongside Wade many times. And when they think they come in and they're fit, they do a workout with a guy like Wade, they soon learn that they're not even close to where they need to be.
Now, I've heard from Jim that you are not particularly unfit, but you must enjoy this thing. Obviously, you enjoy training.
Yeah, no, racing's one of those disciplines where you don't have much structure other than race week, and so it's not like a regular stick and ball sport where if you need to practice, you go to the pitch and you practice what you're doing. So for me, I know it's important to have some kind of daily structure and discipline, and training with Jim gives me that every day.
You are certainly not lacking in talent. That's obvious. So what's the key to it? Just bucks?
Unfortunately, it is. The problem is you've got Ganassi and Penske, even Andretti Green, and they're the 3 top teams that hire drivers on talent. And at the end of the day, when one of their drivers leaves, they're just going to recycle one of the drivers from the other top teams. They don't need to take a chance with a young driver. So you're really relying on the midfield teams to take a chance, and none of them have their own commercial sponsorship. So they rely on drivers, a lot of Europeans that come over and take the rides. So if I'm going to beat those guys to the rides, I have to pull my finger out and find that funding. So
it's not only the treadmill in the gym you're on, it's a sort of a treadmill of waiting for a drive to come up and trying as hard as you can to get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I was probably naive when I started. I thought, you know, if I come out and I do a good job and I win, the rest is going to take care of itself. And I wish I didn't have that mindset now, because if I had started what I'm doing now in 2006 when I was, you know, at the peak of my Indy lights then, you know, maybe I wouldn't be here now, because I would have worked on finding the funding, worked on building the relationships that you need to make something happen. And that's only really something that I started last year. And it's not a quick process. It's something that takes time. So things that happened last year, now I'm meeting the right people and trying to make things happen and you know, build that base of people that I can turn to and help build relationships and networking. And, you know, hopefully I'll have something for the end of this year. So, unfortunately, it's not just me as well. There's many good drivers that lack the funding to make it. So I've got to make sure that if we're level on talent and determination, that you got to have that one extra little bit, which is the funding. So I know that I have to work hard and harder than the other people to get that first.
Still to come, I talk nitro fuel and drag racing with Lynn and Grant Downing, a couple that go racing together. Welcome back to Still Kiwis and Characters in Motorsport. They've been called 200-mile-an-hour billboards, and the cars and teams' very survival depends on getting the message across. The business of signs and lettering is vital to them, and wouldn't you know it, there's a Kiwi at the very forefront of that business.
Well, I worked out of Detroit for McLaren Racing there with the Indy Car team for that 1979 season. And towards the end of that season, I met my soon-to-be wife here in Indianapolis, and I moved here and worked for my father-in-law for a couple of years in the machine shop. And knowing all of the different people that I had known in IndyCar and in Formula One, they were asking me to do lettering on their cars all the time, and we thought, well, maybe there's a chance there's a full-time job here. So that was when we started Freelance Lettering, and I worked out of the garage in 1982, and it was born. I started out with a paintbrush, just doing the lettering on them, and whenever we did start freelancing, then we started spray painting them as well. There was a big need for that, and that kept us very busy.
But now Freelance has grown into a much bigger company. What sort of things does the company do now?
Well, we don't paint anymore. It's all graphics. It's all vinyl lettering and vinyl backgrounds applied to the race cars if they need to be wrapped, or if it's just lettering, it'll just be decals. And the more modern Indy cars and race cars are all sprayed with a paint mask and then clear coated, so there's no actual decals on them. The decal portion of it is actually the paint mask. Well, it's basically the reverse of a decal, a negative of a decal, to where you would apply it to the race car and you would spray the color of the decal on the car. It's a stencil, shall we say, but they call them paint masks.
Do you also do trucks for race teams and things like that? Because they're not all spray painted these days, are they?
No, the semis are typically wrapped with vinyl, and there's a couple of reasons they do that. Obviously, they change at the end of the season. If the sponsor changes or they want to go ahead and have a new scheme, then it all just gets peeled off and redone, and it's obviously less expensive than actually spraying the semis. Plus, the turnaround time is a lot less. They don't have to be off the road very long.
Are there any other projects you get involved in?
We've done lettering on almost everything you can imagine. We've done lettering for Connie Kalida's airline up in Michigan that flies the postal routes, and we would make decals for those airplanes, and they'd apply them. We've done wraps on boats. We've done around the Motor Speedway one year. They decided they wanted to put the wing and wheels on the wall, because it typically never used to have any advertising on it at all. So we made up great big 48-inch long wing and wheels logos and drove around the track and did a lap and put a decal on every corner. So, the decals can get applied to a lot of things.
Having Freelance Lettering centered in Gasoline Alley must have helped, because that address is iconic around the world.
Well, yeah, it did help. The street used to be called Rowena Street, and all of the different companies on the street that were building race cars or engines or chassis or race teams all put together I think $75 each, and we applied for a name change to the street, and they allowed it, and so all the signs went up and it became Gasoline Alley, because the one at the track actually wasn't an official name. This was the first official Gasoline Alley in Indianapolis, but then of course the Speedway went ahead and what do they do? They trademarked the name, so that was as far as it went, just from here to the end of the street. At one point on this street, you could actually get an IndyCar chassis built, you could get an engine built, you could get it painted and leaded, and there was a team that would take it and put it up at the Speedway and put it in the race.
Fullerton, California is home to Silver Fern Racing, and for Lynn and Grant Downing, Silver Fern and drag racing figure very big in their lives.
When I came here, I said I would not work on boats. I wanted to come here and get into motor racing, motorsports, whatever I could, to try and get to drive one of these fuel funny cars. And I figured I'd just start at the bottom and work my way up. As it turned out, I started my own business within a year of getting here, and then figured out that if you build a slow car and then a fast one and a faster one, you've spent a lot of money, so I just built this one first.
It must be very difficult for you to carry on. In fact, I'm not sure how you do. It's all to do with sponsorship, is it?
I work normally 10 hours a day at my current job for Worsham Racing, and then I work another 3 hours plus a day on my own car, and then on Saturday and Sunday I'll work at least 8 to 10 hours on Saturday and Sunday on my own car, with some of my crew guys that live locally will come and help on some weekends, and some of my crew guys that don't live locally. One lives in Indianapolis, so he can't come and help. So it's just something you have to do. You get up early in the morning, you get like an hour in on your own car, you work all day for the boss, you get a few hours in. I mean, there's a lot of sacrifices, if especially here in LA where there's so much to do, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
I work Monday through Friday in hospital administration. I don't spend much time working on the car when it's not at the track, but when we got the latest body, I was underneath it putting 2 layers of fire paint on it. When it gets painted, I put all the decals and everything on, make sure that we've got all the current stuff for the latest sponsors on it, or the old sponsors taken off.
Without Lynn having a great job and helping pay for the car, without me having my job, being able to build the car, work on it and pay for it, and then trying to find other people, you just couldn't do it. I mean, it's silly to say, but your name is on the car, maybe because you are the sponsor. Some years we only do 3 races a year. Last year we did 7. I mean, that was a record for us. We managed to qualify for 5 of them, which helps pay for everything. I mean, we could go to the next race, and then when you're out there a little more, sponsors see you, and it's a little bit easier to get them.
You run the Silver Fern on the car, you're called Silver Fern Racing. Do the Americans actually recognise what it is?
A lot of them don't know. Some of them think it's a feather we have on the car, a fishbone we have on the car. They're not really sure about it. Every weekend we just explain to more and more people exactly what it is and why it's on our cars. It's part of New Zealand. It shows that we're from New Zealand. It's for us to be able to be patriotic in a foreign country without upsetting them.
Lynn, how do you look after the team? You obviously travel with a fair number of people in the team.
Apart from Grant and myself, we have about seven crew. It depends on the race and whether or not their partners and kids want to come as well, but it's usually 7. It takes about a good 6 hours to coordinate just making all the flights and hotel bookings for one race.
And is New Zealand still home for you both?
Everybody asks, well, you live in California since '92. Is that home? It's where I live. New Zealand's home.
Mark Scott, from your beginnings in New Zealand through McLaren, being a mechanic for James Hunt in the World Championship when he won that, going on to race Formula Ford in New Zealand and crash them quite a lot, I might add.
Occasionally, yeah.
And then coming up to America and being part of and starting America's most successful racing car constructor, Riley and Scott. It's a heck of a journey.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun actually, and I've been so lucky to have worked with so many people that have been able to influence what I've done in New Zealand. From, as we were just talking about, the likes of Reg Cook and Steve Horn that worked there, and Ray Grant from McLaren, and then those guys helping me as a youngster come come over to England, work in Formula One, and then eventually a lot of the F1 mechanics wanted to come over and do Indy, and I was one of those guys, of course. I came over for a year with Teddy Mayer and Tyler Alexander in '84, and I'm still over here. And then to get to work with the likes of Bob Riley, when we started Riley and Scott, that was a real treat. And of course, Riley Technologies is still going today, building a lot of really good Grand Am cars. It's been fun. As a mechanic, I got to work with Bob in IndyCar racing and in sports car racing in the early '80s. And Bob's a very clever designer, and as such, he in particular had problems getting people to build the cars as he designed them. And I really enjoyed building cars, having learnt that at McLaren and places like that. And so we decided it was a bit of a natural to him design them and me get them built in the manner in which he would like them built. And so that started that company. And as it turns out, it was successful. And so, yeah, it was nothing planned, but we just sort of rolled into it. There was a need for a really good SCCA Trans Am car at that time. General Motors knew the value of Bob Riley's designs, and they ordered some, and that helped set the whole thing off. And then Rob Dyson he got us into the sports car racing. He fronted the money for the first of the Mark III world sports cars, and it's still going from there, really. You know, I left school not really knowing what I was going to do, and I still haven't quite figured that out yet. But it's one of those deals where every time I was asked for a business plan, I just sort of cringed, and I just didn't know how to do that. No, it's been a little bit seat of the pants, but I think that's the case with a lot of guys from New Zealand. It's as much for the adventure itself than having some particular aim in motorsports.
You've done this progression from a mechanic in New Zealand to being what you are in the States now. Can a mechanic in New Zealand with ambition do the same as you?
I think so. I think New Zealanders are held in very high regard in the motorsports industry over here. The people that travel this far to be a part of the industry generally are very enthusiastic and knowledgeable, and so that really gets them through the first cut anyway. So yeah, I think it's still possible. It's getting tougher all the time because obviously they're more and more specialised, but it is tough.
Mark Scott has certainly played a major role in race car construction, not only in the US but around the world. Another Kiwi proudly leading the way. Just for now, I leave you from Indianapolis and look forward to the next Still Kiwis and Characters in Motorsport, where I catch up with a man from Gore, an Aucklander that now calls Costa Mesa, California home, and I chat once again with NASCAR star Marcus Ambrose. So for now, thanks for watching and sharing the journey as we uncover these great people.
Huh?